Hey guys, Shot the Monkey here. So back again with another review. It's going to be a bit quicker than my usual reviews, although probably around the same time, maybe a bit longer as the review I did yesterday of the Tier 5 Italian cruiser. But this time we're going to cover the Tier 7 premium Japanese destroyer, the Yūdachi. And this ship is quite similar to a ship that's available in the tech tree for those of you who've travelled down the line which leads on through, or leads through, I should say, the Shiratsuyu. If you've played the Shiratsuyu or have the Shiratsuyu or are going to get the Shiratsuyu, you are getting essentially a very similar vessel in the Shiratsuyu to the Yūdachi, just of course it not being premium. So let's go through the ship stats and see what we've got. So I'm not going to cover arm on this occasion because it's a destroyer and there's no real arm on any destroyers apart from that one exception, the Russian 3, which I think is the Khabarovsk, but I'm not 100% sure. In terms of hit points, you're at 13,200, which is not the best at tier 7, but it's by no means the worst. And if you put Survivability Expert on your destroyer captain, which I highly recommend, that'll put you out to 15,600, so that puts you somewhere just slightly above the Leningrad, which is another tier 7 premium destroyer as an example. In terms of artillery, you have 5 127mm main battery guns. You have 2 twin turrets and a single gun turret with 1 forward and 2 aft. Their turret rotation speed is pretty poor, with a 180 turn time of 30 seconds, reload time of 9 seconds, which isn't that bad, and they have a 9% chance of causing fire with HE shells, 2,150 maximum damage with HE shells. The AP does 2,200 damage maximum, and they've got a firing range of 11.8 kilometers and a shell velocity of 915 meters. The main armament for this destroyer, though, of course, with it being a Japanese torpedo boat, is of course the torpedoes, of which you have 2 quad launchers, 610mm torpedoes. They have a reload time stock of 100 seconds. The 180 turn time is 6 seconds. They do a maximum damage of 15,633, have a 15-kilometer range, and move at 57 knots. That is the one downside of these torpedoes, that 57 knots does feel quite slow for them. So there are occasions where you'll fire and you'll lead a ship perfectly, but because they are so slow and take so long getting there, that the slightest deviation in terms of your target speed or changing course has a massive effect because of how long the torpedoes take to travel. Of course, if they were like even 10 knots faster, that would feel, of course, a lot better. 57 knots isn't necessarily bad. There are slower, there are quicker, but it's just something to keep in mind considering that your torpedoes are your primary method of damage. AA defense, none. You've got 2 single-barreled 40mm guns for your AA defense, and that's it. So you won't be shooting down any aircraft, and any carrier aircraft that do decide to station nearby you to keep you spotted will keep you spotted at all times. Honestly, there's no point turning your AA on. You might as well just leave it off. Because if a carrier aircraft flies overhead or any aircraft fly overhead and they want to keep you spotted, they will keep you spotted. So it's best to keep your AA guns off, because if you're going to be detected, you're going to be detected. And having your AA guns firing will just make your detection worse for no real gain, because you'll never really shoot down any aircraft in any reasonable speed. With maneuverability, your top speed is 34 knots. You have a turning circle radius of 570 meters and a rudder shift time of 3.2 seconds, which isn't bad. Certainly there are quicker destroyers at tier 7, the Leningrad being one of them, although the Leningrad I think suffers with a far worse turning circle radius and I think a slightly worse rudder shift time as well. So she's quite agile, but she just lacks a bit in the top end, top speed. But that's not really an issue because, of course, like most destroyers, you have the engine boost consumable, and while that's active, it does bring the speed up a bit more reasonable, around the 37 knot range, I think. In terms of concealment, this is where the Japanese destroyers, of course, have really shined and will always shine. Without camouflage on, which you get as standard, of course, if you buy the ship, but without the premium camouflage active, you have a detectability range by sea at 7 kilometers, by air of 3 kilometers. Of course, your assured detectability range is 2 kilometers, and detectability for firing main guns in smoke is at 2.6. Concealment, of course, always the standout feature for Japanese destroyers, and this thing really can perform quite well on most maps in terms of sneaking around, getting into caps, or trying to outflank the enemy to provide better targets for firing your torpedoes into. Of course, if you are caught out within that concealment, especially by another destroyer, it's very hard for you to disengage because you are quite slow at tier 7. So it will take you some time to get out of detectability range if you are picked up within that 7 or 6.1 kilometers, or whatever your detectability range may be, depending on, of course, concealment, camouflage and captain skills. Overall, I've not really enjoyed this ship. It can be played as a sort of hybrid, but the captain skills will only do so much to make up for the guns, and of course most people who buy this ship or play Japanese torpedo boat destroyers will of course be theming their captain skills toward making the torpedoes, which are already outstanding weapon, better. But my torpedoes, whenever I was playing this, seemed to have an issue of they would always seem to just conveniently form a gap exactly where the ship that I wanted to hit with them was going. So whenever I fired a spread at whatever target might be, regardless of how close or far away they were or what angle I had, a ship-sized gap seemed to conveniently appear exactly where that vessel was to allow him to pass through completely unharmed. And then sometimes the torpedoes might hit a vessel behind him, but yeah, it was again quite rare because of course you're not aiming for targets behind him, you're aiming for your intended, lead indicator target. So this certainly isn't one that I would have bought in hindsight, and probably not a line that I will touch anytime soon, because only the tier 8 through tier 10s on the gunboat line are really what interests me for Japanese destroyers. But your mileage may vary, of course. You may find this fine, you may have better luck with torpedoes than I did, you just might be a better overall destroyer player than I am, because I will admit destroyers are not something I play that often and something I'm not really that good at. But I thought I'd give it a go, at least put a review out, have a couple of games in it and see what it's all about, and I can certainly see where the charm for this vessel is, but after my first 2 games, I think where I got pretty lucky with my torpedoes working, it just went downhill from there, and I honestly would have more fun in something like a Nicholas or a T-22, for example, or, the more gunboat-based destroyers. Anyway guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review and I hope you enjoyed the gameplay on the video. And thank you very much, and I will see you all next time.
前方に魚雷確認。